Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Idaho 97 podcast. We've done so many episodes, I've lost track of how many we've done, but
9.
Is this 9th or 10th, Mike?
This is 9.
This is our 9th episode, which is pretty amazing. We are here to talk about the primary election, which happened last week. And we got some really interesting results. There's a couple things out there that we want to correct the record on. There's some things we want to report on, how we did with our voter guide and our endorsements. And let's start with, the best of the bunch is the statewide races. We managed to hold off extremists in almost every single one of those statewide positions. Alicia, you want to give us a little rundown of how we did statewide?
We had some really contentious races with some really extreme options in them. And luckily, Idahoans went out to the polls and we stopped all but one seat from, being taken by the most extreme option. That extreme race that we saw get taken was the Attorney General race, where Raul Labrador won. But even in that case, he's not truly all the way an extremist. He's kind of one of those old guard Republicans who has courted the IFF for political means. So it's yet to be seen what Raul is going to do. Unfortunately, we're already treating like Raul is the current AG. He is not. We still have a general election this fall, folks. So it would be great if we could stop acting like he's already the next in charge. But the really important race that we won was the Idaho Secretary of State's race. That was a really close race for a statewide race. And I truly believe that the efforts of volunteers at the Idaho 97 calling unaffiliated voters to get plugged into ballots with candidates helped win that race. So I would really like to take a second to thank every single volunteer that we have at Idaho 97. There are hundreds of you. I can't name you all, but thank you so much for spending the time contacting unaffiliated voters this cycle and explaining the primary process to them, giving them the education that they needed to be able to participate in the primary the way that they would like to. So, kudos to us. Janice isn't going to be our governor. That's another excellent point out of the primary, and we will soon be done with her.
She's very upset. She's not governor for a day. Governor Little left the state today, and she's been on social media already saying she wasn't notified.
I guess maybe her phone was cut off because she didn't pay the bill or something.
Ouch.
Well, just to continue on that, Alicia, the Republican who's nominated for Secretary of State is a professional election worker who comes out of Ada County. We can trust that he holds elections sacred like we do, and we were very happy with that result. Raul Labrador, he should come talk to us. He should come talk to the Idaho 97 and the 97% of Idahoans who don't want this state to turn to extremism. I tried to visit him in D.C. about 10 years ago, and he blew me off. I think he was scared to talk to me about immigration, but Raul, we're open. We love to chat with you about the problems our state is facing and the problems that regular Idahoans are facing. So, come talk to us. What else? So any other major statewide races that Emily or Mike?
Well, I just want to reiterate the Secretary of State thing, because I believe that race was won by less than 5,000 votes. And, we contacted with Idaho 97 about 40,000 voters. And so we definitely made a big amount of difference in that race and in the others that, didn't swing where we wanted it, where we would have been quite upset if it had swung there. So we're pretty pleased with that result. And I think it is proof of concept that the work we're doing to get more Idahoans to weigh in on who runs our state is working.
And another thing is that race is probably the race that is the best example of how coalitions work. So we were in a coalition. This is no secret that we were aligned with interests such as Take Back Idaho. We were aligned with interests such as Conservation Voters of Idaho and a lot of other groups that were out there. And if any one single group had failed to hold up their end of the bargain, we would have a completely different outcome here, right? And this is how everybody came together and said, we're going to work together, making our state better. And it worked. We all worked, and he made it with 5,000 votes in a three-way. That's another thing that makes it very, very close, because it was a three-way race, and two of those folks were people who would have taken votes away from each other, and it wasn't Phil McGrain. And so that's the best example of how working together can really make a major difference there.
Okay, I was muted for a second there. Those dogs barking. So let's just jump to the Senate, because there's this dominant narrative out there in the media, in the Twitter sphere, that the Senate is screwed and taken over by extremists. And, I've been saying for 2 weeks, we got to count it. Like, let's count it up. So guess what, y'all? The Idaho 97 folks just went through all the races, counted them up. And Emily, tell us what we found. What did it add up to?
So just so y'all know, there's 35 senators in Idaho, right? So 35. And so we did the math and came up with a worst case scenario. In the end, after the November election, we have 15 bad senators. And let's talk about, though, this idea of bad senators and good senators, right? Like, so when we talk about, how do we categorize folks who've won elections? We're talking about, when we say bad, we mean people who would be completely fine with turning all of Idaho's public schools into meat processing factories and letting 8-year-olds work in them. And I know that sounds kind of funny, but there really are people in the Senate, going to the Senate, who are fine with defunding public education. And so if you look at it through that lens, this is what we're saying: 15 bad senators. That is not a majority of votes. And that means, has it swung a little bit farther right? Sure. But when you look at an absolute vote count of people who would take the worst votes to do things that would truly break apart the foundations of democracy in our state, they only have 15 people. In the worst case scenario after November, it's more likely it'll be 12 or 13. And so, we have not lost the Senate. That is not what has happened here. And the November election hasn't happened yet. We've got months until that happens, until that occurs. And so that's where we're at. Now, does that mean that there won't be some bad bills that even people who we classify as good senators would vote for? That still will happen. There will still be bills that go through that we all don't like, but we're trying to delineate between these differences between people who are very extreme, who are really fine with just burning up some stuff in Idaho and getting rid of some really solid things we rely on in our state, like public education. So that's how we've divided it up. And the Senate will require a lot of work. There's also some people in here who we're excited to demonstrate to them that if they swing too far right, they will get kicked out in the Republican primary. We have ways to do that. And in a couple races where that happened this year, and we're excited to help them understand that serving Idahoans is in their best interest if they want to come back to the Senate.
Yeah, a couple other things to keep in mind. A lot of those people are brand new, and the Senate is a more senior, august body than the House. And so, they have to figure out what they're doing there. And also, the Senate is a more deliberative body. And so some of the hot-headed people that are coming in who were maybe sponsored by IFF or sponsored by one of these brand new right-wing PACs that are probably IFF anyway, they have learning to do. Idaho citizens are able to go in there and help educate them. Their senior senators are able to educate them. So this is not a done deal, folks. The Senate is still in play, and rationality is still in play.
And I think that this is important to reiterate what Emily said about, you can get kicked out, right, if you have a bad voting record, right? And here are the ones that the voters kicked out because of their voting record, which was an extremist voting record, right? That's Carrie Hanks, right? Priscilla Giddings was roundly defeated for lieutenant governor, Dorothy Moon, and Ron Nate and Chad Christensen, right? These are folks who lost because people said, Idahoans don't like your extremism. And so this is not written, right? These are necessarily all going to end up going that way. And that's what we set out to do from the get-go, right? We set out from the very start to say, if you're not behaving the way Idahoans want you to behave, we're gonna remove you. And that's a whole list of folks that we were adamantly opposed to and very vocal, and the whole coalition that worked against them were opposed to them. So,
guys, I'm looking. So what we did, we made a spreadsheet because we love spreadsheets, or at least two of us. Well, I think we all love spreadsheets.
No. One of us does not.
Lisa likes spreadsheets. We made a spreadsheet. I'm looking at it now. We color coded it. And the red ones are basically all North Idaho and Canyon County. Idaho is much bigger than North Idaho and Canyon. North Idaho, we know, has lots of problems, historic trauma, things that we're working on that Alicia's helping us out with. Canyon County is a very interesting place, always in transition. And so I don't feel like it's a lost cause there either. But the rest of the state is still in rational hands. And so, don't despair, folks. You did your job.
Yeah, right. And it's more than that, right? Ada County and East moved to the center, which was what the goal was, right? So I mean, it very much is a setup that way, and it's not November yet. So let's keep all that in mind as we move forward.
Definitely. So what we did, in case you haven't been following, before the primary, the Republican primary, essentially, we put together a voter guide that's on our website, the Idaho97.org, where we essentially endorsed candidates who were not extremists across the board. Emily, we have a little list of our results, like the highlights from how our candidates did. You want to, I think Alicia and Emily are going to tag team this, but run it down for us.
Yeah. So, Mike already mentioned some of these folks that we kicked out, right? We're able to kick out. And then there's a few additional people that we were able to keep out who were very serious threats. One is Brandon Durst. Another is Eric Parker of Bundy insurrectionist fame, pointing a weapon at federal agents and folks who were trying to do bad stuff down in Nevada years ago. So those are some people there. But then I want to list some people who we helped get into office who were fantastic people. We're excited to see them in there. Mark Sauter, Jeff Schroeder, Stephanie Mickelson, Phil McGrain for Secretary of State, Lori McCann, Josh Tanner, Britt Raybould, Josh Wheeler. You might not know who some of those people are, but you will start hearing more and more about them as this next legislative session ramps up and see the things that they do. We're excited for them to bring a viewpoint to the legislature that is grounded in Idaho values and the things that Idahoans are looking for. And then, there are a few people who are sticking around a little longer, it looks like. So those folks in the legislature that you're going to keep hearing about who are extremists: Heather Scott, Vito Barbieri, Ron Mendive, Cody Galloway, Cody Galloway, there's no guarantee she'll win in 15, Tammy Nichols, and then Judy Boyle. So those are some people that have stuck it out, but we're going to continue doing our work to help them see that their extremism will eventually mean that they don't get to be in office. But I do want to say, for all the people that we weighed in on at Idaho 97 that we supported, 29 of those people won and 23 of them lost. So a little over 50% of those people did win. We're pretty happy about that. We do think there's a bonus that Mary Souza is not in the Senate anymore also, and she lost her Secretary of State race. So overall, we're pretty happy, and we see where Idahoans are recognizing they do need to weigh in on elections that affect them. So.
Right on. Well, to wrap it up, I think Mike has a political metaphor. I don't think it's crossing the Potomac. I'm not sure where he's going to go with this, but
it's a water. It's a body of water. If I'm involved, I'm an old Navy guy. If I'm involved in the discussion, it's always going to have a body of water involved. So, this is a good time to sit here and reflect on the Idaho 97's efforts over almost the last year and a half. And when we started this, when I first came out and said, all right, I am the executive director of the Idaho 97. This is the group that Nate and Emily started and founded. And then we brought Alicia on over our first summer. And when we started, and even throughout that summer, when we were going around talking to people, I kept telling people, look, these folks have been at it for more than a decade, right? Like really at it. And what we're trying to do here is we're looking at it from a strategic position. And this is what we're trying to do, is we're trying to force our Dunkirk moment. Right. And so what Dunkirk was, for those of you who don't know, when the Germans in World War II did their blitzkrieg, they pushed across Europe and just stunned everybody. Everybody was just shocked at what happened, and they couldn't believe what was going on. Kind of like what we were saying these last two legislative sessions. What you heard is, I can't believe what these people are doing and all this stuff. Well, that's what happened there. And in Dunkirk, it's a coastal town in France, and they had pushed the British Expeditionary Force and the free forces of Europe that were still hadn't been captured to the beach. And they were going to drive them into the beach. And then the German army was going to jump across the English Channel and invade England. And Dunkirk, what happened was all of these British civilians, people with pleasure boats, with fishing boats, the Navy boats, like everybody came together and went out there. And I mean, like, you seriously see these little itty bitty fishing boats going out and grabbing soldiers and bringing them back to England, right? And say, okay, let's get ready because this is not over, right? This is just starting. And that's what this was. And this is what I told people we were really going for. And then we did the same thing, right? We got all these Idahoans together. We got this just broadly disparate people in Idaho came together and said, you know what, we have these big major differences. And I don't want to underscore those differences because some of them are very substantial, but we all said, no, the one thing that we really believe in this one combined joint shared value is our democracy in Idaho. And we're going to come together and we're going to work for it. And that's what we did. Right. And so, I saw mixed feelings, right? When we got online and checking our emails, we had a bunch of people saying, thank you all so much for what you did. But then we had a bunch of people out there saying, this is terrible, right? And people in Northern Idaho are just shocked. And then a lot of people in Canyon County are just shocked. And we're listening to these news reports, and like some news reports are like, hey, kind of got held. Other news reports, it's going to be awful. And so we don't know. And the honest answer is I took my cue from what the extremists did. And what the extremists did was started to scream at the Idaho 97. And they started to scream at Take Back Idaho and to start calling all those names and all kinds of stuff. And that's when I realized, you know what? We really, really, really messed up their plans. Right? And I'll tell you, how we messed their plans up. We messed their plans up because, one, they didn't get the Secretary of State's office, which they absolutely needed to tinker and monkey with Idaho elections, right? And instead, not only they did not get it, but we got an actually very, very qualified person who has come out and said, I will protect your right to vote. And so that's huge. They didn't take the state offices that they wanted to take. And in fact, they really got spanked in those races. They had this setup, obviously, and they poured tons of money into North Idaho and the whole state, but really North Idaho and in Canyon County. I was sitting down with another group of folks, and we were counting it up, just what our group spent. I'll tell you, Idaho 97, you know how many dollars we spent actually in race? None, not a single dollar. This was all volunteer work. Right. All of the donations that we received and everything else went to paying the people who were coordinating the volunteer work and making sure that our volunteers got out there. But the other groups, they had donors and things like that, but they were outspent by like $200 to one. And yet what we did is we went around behind the Freedom Foundation. We went around behind the John Birch Society, and we pulled out people that they thought they had that would stay there. And we removed them and we replaced them with good folks. And they thought they were going to take the whole state over. Right. And so that's why I say, no, this is what we're trying to do. Make this the Dunkirk moment. They didn't get to England. They didn't get to Idaho. Right? They did not take over the state. Now, does this mean it's easy? No, not at all. Even that same analogy, right? In World War II, the Axis powers moved across a lot of other things afterwards. And years and years of fighting followed that. Right. And so, no, it's not easy. Our work is cut out for us. But it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing that we, and when I say we, I'm talking to you listeners as well, that we were able to come together as just regular folks against major internal and external money coming in here, and we were able to stop this forward progression. Now, does it mean it's going to be an awesome session next year? Not necessarily. We've got work ahead of us, but we know what we need to do. They're going to go lick their wounds and figure out what they need to do. And we're going to be right back at it for Idaho, right? But we believe in this fight because we believe in our state, we believe in our country, and we believe in our democracy. And we cannot lose this fight. And so we're going to keep moving forward. And so that's why I tell people, look, that's what we want, and that's what we got. We actually did better than what I thought we were going to do. So we should be pretty thrilled here because we were able to engage in our system, and we were able to make a difference in our system. And that's how it's supposed to work.
Amen. It's a good reference, Mike. My historical reference is from Hamilton. Winning is easy, governing is harder. All the folks who are coming in who think they can just throw bombs and be anarchists, you have a lot of people's lives in your hands now. And you're going to see that, running the state is not, it's not a game. And so I'm optimistic that some of these folks are going to step up to the plate. Maybe I'm naive, since they're probably inspired by the Axis powers that Mike was just talking about.
It'll be a mix. I think it'll be a mix, and I think, like we said, look, it's obvious. If you show up there and you show that you have a record of destruction and poor behavior, there's a price that you pay, right? And we've got a long list of folks that paid that price because of it.
All right. Well, Emily, did you want to jump in?
No, just say thank you to everyone. Thank you.
Alicia, last words?
I'm just really appreciative that Idaho showed up to the polls. We achieved our goals at Idaho 97, and we're going to continue to hold elected officials accountable. So go team. And we have a full summer ahead of us to do so before the session starts. So stay tuned.
Right on. All right. Well, we'll see you the next time. I'm Nathaniel Hoffman with Alicia Abbott, Emily Walton, and Mike Satz, and we're the Idaho 97. And thank you for listening.